notice to that homeowner, they are entitled, if they have flood insurance, to an extra policy on their flood insurance that will grant them up to $30,000 towards the cost of bringing that structure to code, either elevating it, demolishing it, or within the rules, even moving it. There was, not using this program, but I know in Schoharie County a few years back, they took an old historic church and actually physically moved it out of the floodplain. People that are going to be hit by this high flood insurance really need to think long term. And it may be worth your while to really think about what it's going to cost to physically elevate the home. In some cases, depending on how the home was constructed, it may not cost as much as you think. I'm not going to say it's cheap. If you're getting the machinery under the home and just physically lifting it up and building a new foundation under it, yeah, it's going to cost $80,000 or $90,000 probably. But if you've got a home that's already on some sort of a crawl space, maybe it's got a basement underneath it, but the first floor is at or above that flood elevation, maybe you have a way less expensively to elevate the utilities, fill in that basement area, put vents in. It may not be that expensive, and that's going to significantly lower flood insurance rates. These houses that are brought to compliance, not only is their insurance going to go way down, but the marketability of the structure will stay there. So these are numbers that we got from downstate after Sandy. Figure about an average of $90,000 if you're going to bring in equipment to physically lift the home. Once you have that equipment in, it doesn't cost that much to go higher. Also, when you're building a new house, it doesn't cost that much for each extra foot of elevation. So figure about, plus the cost of getting the equipment in place, about $1.06 per square foot of building footprint per additional foot of elevation. So for instance, you've got a 1,000 square foot footprint, you've already got the machinery in place, which is the costly part. Going up an extra foot is going to cost a little over $1,000 extra dollars. This is a FEMA slide. And when FEMA released it, I thought that FEMA headquarters might pull back on it, but they've been circulating this. So this gives you an example of what $250,000 worth of flood insurance might cost for a structure that is 3 feet above the base flood elevation, at the base flood elevation, and 4 feet below the base flood elevation. In other words, a basement below the base flood elevation. That's significant. These are the houses that we're going to see significant impacts on as we move forward. One of the other things that yes?
You've been talking about flood waters that come like down the street. In the community that I live in, the entire community was built on a high water table, and so the flooding doesn't come into the houses.
It's high groundwater.
It comes up from the ground through the basement floors.
Okay,
so is that flooding?
That gets the definition of flood.
That's what my question is.
For purposes of flood insurance, the definition of flood, something that you're covered for under your policy, has to be surface flooding. So it's not just groundwater comes up and floods your basement. It has to be water on the surface, but that water has to affect either 2 acres plus of area